And a happy Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. Today got off to a nice start in terms of how it looked outside. We had some peaks of sunshine and finally a sunrise that we did get within view. But that forecast has changed mighty drastically. If you're watching the stream, and obviously you probably have taken a look out the window, we already have some rain that is creeping into the forecast. And this is the beginning of a stretch of many dreary days that we do have ahead. So as of now, we do have a weather impact alert for Friday evening into all day on Saturday. The impact is going to be on and off chilly rain. Nothing that really looks too heavy in nature except within some pockets on occasion. However, the rain is looking to be widespread. And just given the timing of this weekend, it's the first weekend of December. Many Central Georgia cities are kicking off their Christmas celebrations. So of course, what you need to do is number one, just like we were talking about with the weather impact alert earlier this week, exercise caution on the roads, allow for a few extra minutes when going to your destinations throughout this weekend. Make sure you dress warm because obviously the main story is going to be the rainfall. However, not to discount the chilly temperatures that we are going to continue to have. So layer up and then throw the rain gear over those layers. I promise it's a decision that will pay off, especially if you have to spend an extended period of time outside. But the main reason for this weather impact alert, like I mentioned, the timing and the overlapping of many events, many Christmas parades, celebrations that will be happening starting on Friday evening and going into the day on Saturday. You're going to want to keep an eye on the event status of all of those celebrations. And we have a handy dandy web story that we're drafting for you right now. And you can find all of the updates with any events in Central Georgia cities on 13WMAZ.com. But we also did get a new update to our drought monitor, and actually, believe it or not, we didn't even see any areas of improvement, with the exception of maybe a patch of an extreme drought up here to the northwest of us that did go away. But all of Central Georgia, or almost the entirety rather I should say, is in a severe drought. So we saw this severe drought expand farther up to the north, now encompasses areas like Forsyth and into Milledgeville. Our northernmost counties are simply in a moderate drought, and then this portion of Telfair, Wheeler, and maybe some portions of southern Montgomery County are also in a moderate drought. But we do see this extreme drought still standing down to the south and the southwest. And obviously you see this is as of November 25th. Just didn't have time to update this graphic. So this is going to be as of December 2nd, this past Tuesday. We haven't seen the improvement of any drought conditions. Very thankfully, we already have another widespread rainmaker on its way, and this one looks even more impressive than what we did have during the nighttime hours on Monday and into Tuesday. So just because we didn't get relief this time around doesn't mean that it isn't going to be in store. We'll be eagerly awaiting the update with the drought monitor as of next Thursday, when we finally enter a drier stretch of weather. Over the course of this weekend, it is just going to be nothing but dreary weather. So the first 3 days of December, 2 out of those 3 days, we have recorded rainfall at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. Just under 1/4 of an inch on Monday, December 1st, and then an inch of rainfall on December 2nd. Yesterday was a dry day. However, we have seen an uptick with this amount of rain so far early in the month. That puts us in the a bit wet category for the month of December. 1.24 inches of rain, and our average just over 4 inches. So it looks like we're about 1/4 of the way there already in terms of how much rainfall we should receive in the month of December. And if we're to get some totals, maybe up to 2 or 3 inches over the course of this weekend, we could very well be flirting with that average mark. But I do imagine up here farther to the north, we'll probably get somewhere around 2.5 inches of rainfall when it's all said and done as we go into next week. So your record back a decade ago in 2015, just over 2.5 inches of rainfall. Don't think we'll necessarily have that in store. However, it's pretty early in the month and we are off to a wet start. So we'll see if we do get anywhere close to that record-breaking territory. So kicking off a wet stretch, that's going to be your main headline. On and off rain all weekend long, as it looks like right now. And it looks like we finally clear out as we go into Monday next week. So that's going to be the one day that we do have very minuscule rain chances, and I do expect us to finally see some sunshine again. But that image of the sunrise earlier this morning, that may be the last glimpse of sunshine we get until we get sometime into maybe Sunday morning, maybe towards the back half of the weekend. We'll talk about everything that you need to know. Here's a walk around the quad where we see steady showers coming down in Warner Robins. Kind of hard to pick apart just because of the smaller camera view, but if you look at the trees and the grass, some of those darker colors, you can see the raindrops steadily falling. Same case down to the south at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, downtown Dublin and downtown Macon. Not quite sure if we're seeing any rainfall just yet, but it is a mostly cloudy atmosphere at the very least is what you're dealing with. And along with that, your temperatures this morning, they were frigid. They were somewhere in the low 30s, maybe into the mid 30s. But we have seen a steady warm up, somewhere scattered about the low and mid 40s right now. But this is still a chilly atmosphere. Anytime you have blue on this temperature graphic, it is something that you will want to bundle up for before walking outside. But 45 degrees, maybe 46 degrees down in Vidalia. That's the warmest number we can spot. Looks like we just got an update to those temperature shades. But areas over to the east of us, they haven't had cloud cover as widespread throughout the morning hours, so that's why they are dealing with some warmer temperature values, say over into coastal South Carolina, somewhere in the 50s. So 46 for our warmest temperature. How does that match up against the rest of your temperature map? Take a look at this frigid air. Up in northern Missouri, Iowa, getting up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, portions of Illinois, they are still sitting in the teens. 16 degrees in Kansas City, 18 degrees in St. Louis. Give you an idea, yes, the weather could always be worse. It could be much, much colder than the numbers we're dealing with. But along kind of the deep south belt of the United States, 42 in Montgomery, pretty similar to that temperature here in Macon. 47 in Jackson, just 1 degree above your current temperature in Vidalia. But down in Florida, still holding on to those warmer temperatures. 72 for the warmest number on this temperature map down in central Florida and Orlando. We don't have too much humidity in the forecast, but the dew point temperatures may be slightly warmer than what we did see at this time yesterday. Your dew point temperatures were somewhere maybe in the low 30s as opposed to the upper 30s and the low 40s. So a slight uptick in the humidity values. However, these graphics are going to become less and less important as we continue into the colder months of the year. We really won't have much humidity whatsoever to work with, except when maybe some passing weather systems come by. But right now, the weather is paired up with some very dry air, and the winds right now, they are relatively calm, maybe a breeze up to 5 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour. These continue to be important, even if it is just seeming like a light breeze in the forecast. Once you get some winds up to 5 miles per hour with the temperatures we continue to have in the 40s, it can result in feels like numbers just a couple degrees below what those actual numbers read. So a chilly atmosphere and a rainy chill is what we're walking outside to as of right now. Comparing those to the numbers we had yesterday, which was the one dry day. Remember, I was telling you to soak up as much of that dry weather as you could, because it was looking to be maybe the only day this week that we actually won't have rain chances in the forecast. 50 degrees was our high temperature. Remember, I had a high temperature of 55, and that was just for a select few areas. I said most areas are going to be somewhere in the upper 40s and the low 50s. Looks like that came to fruition here in downtown Macon. 30 degrees was your low, so we continue to have below average lows and below average high temperatures. However, as we go throughout the next couple of days and cloud cover is very widespread, it's actually going to result in some above average morning low temperatures, but your afternoon highs, it is still going to be a chilly atmosphere and a chilly stretch of weather as we go into the back half of this first full week of December. So 64, your average high temperature this time of year. 81 degrees yesterday, that was the record. So obviously still holding on to that warm stretch maybe that we had about 2 weeks ago back in 1970. In 1960, we hit a morning low temperature of 17 degrees. But no rain, so the year departure did fall down just a little bit. Now hovering about 1/4 of an inch above where we should be at this point in 2025. Sunrise 7:21 and sunset 5:28. Still saying 5:28, but I do believe the sunset is more closer to around 5:27. But that's just a matter of seconds and maybe a matter of minutes. And then we take a look at today's forecast. Not the best. 50 for a high temperature, and you know how I've been saying that a select few areas will reach the forecasted high the last couple of days. That's the case once again today. I think most of your temperatures going to be scattered about the mid to upper 40s all throughout the afternoon. So chilly with plenty of widespread light showers, a bit of a breeze out of the west. 5 to 10 miles per hour may not seem significant, but like I mentioned, when the breeze gets up to 5 miles per hour, that's when we start to see an influence on the feels like numbers. So your temperatures are very likely going to be feeling in the 40s all afternoon long. So here's a look at your hour by hour warm up. This graphic doesn't have us getting above 46 degrees up in the Macon area. Some areas may flirt with the 50 degree mark, But all in all, I am telling you to expect somewhere in the mid to upper 40s for those temperatures as you head into the second half of your Thursday. And then as we go into the evening hours, we do start to see a steady downtick. However, it's not going to really be feeling any different as we go into the nighttime hours because the cloud cover is very widespread, and that is going to result in some morning or warmer morning low temperature values as you walk outside tomorrow. So satellite and radar, that has definitely flipped the script over the last couple of hours. Widespread cloud cover, so everyone has something in the form of mostly cloudy skies, but then breaking down the rain chances piece by piece. In our northernmost counties, not lucking out with as much rain. It does look dry up in Putnam County, Baldwin County, Hancock counties, but then you start to see some scattered sprinkles for the most part. Just really some green colors that you can see in the northernmost vicinity of central Georgia. Looks like we're getting a new radar scan here in real time, and it continues to show that the rain farther to the north is mainly just light showers that we are seeing. It's once you go down into areas like Upson County, maybe portions of Crawford, Monroe, and especially Taylor County, that's where the rain does have some steadier pockets indicated by those yellow shades. Remember, this scale is going to be key when we're talking about the rain. So if you start to get into the yellows, the oranges, the reds, over to the right side of the scale, that's going to be your heavier rainfall in nature, obviously indicated by the heavy that you see here on the right side of the legend. And then down here in the corner of Sumter, Dooley, and maybe portions of Macon County, that's where probably the steadiest rain is continuing to fall, just west of Vienna, down to the southwest of Unadilla. But rain is continuing to be pretty widespread. Actually, it does look like there's some rain over in the downtown Dublin corridor, and it will continue to push over to the east. Almost everyone in central Georgia does look to get some form of rain today, but there's a whole lot more where that came from. So go ahead and keep your eyes peeled to what's over to the west and the southwest over the next couple of days, because that's going to be the direction our showers are coming from each and every day. So we'll talk more about why that is in just a moment, but first things first, big picture view. Most of the state of Georgia is enveloped in plenty of pretty dense cloud cover. Over in East Georgia, we actually do see some thinner cloud cover in nature, but light rain, a couple of scattered sprinkles up here near the metro Atlanta area, northern Georgia, and then the rain does have steadier pockets as you go down to the south and the southwest. But remember that drought monitor I just showed you. We definitely need the rain in those areas in south and southwest Georgia. So here's a look at all of the Gulf Coast, because this is a very messy atmosphere, and it is all being caused by a low pressure center that has formed along a stationary boundary, a stalled boundary. So what that's going to act as, it's going to act as a focal point or kind of an axis for where your precipitation will pop up along that stationary boundary, and that low pressure system is what's causing all of this widespread moisture and rain all along those southern vicinity of states like Louisiana, Mississippi, down into the western panhandle of Florida, southern Alabama, and all the way up here into southwest Georgia. And we even do see a flash flood warning down here in southern Louisiana. Not sure if we're going to really see that over the course of this weekend. I don't have too much confidence in it, but we may be dealing with something called nuisance flooding, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. So here's a look at future view. Don't get too locked into where the rain is at certain times of the day, just more so the potential. So right now it does look like this big cluster of rain that's moving through right now should fizzle out a little bit, but still scattered light showers in the vicinity as we go into the midway portion of the afternoon. Still looks like widespread rain farther down to the south. You're going to hear me say that a couple of times throughout this stream, because down to the south is actually where our stalled boundary is going to be. And remember, I said that's going to act as a focal point for where your rain chances are, and it will result in some higher rainfall totals. So going into the rest of this evening, obviously still a pretty dreary atmosphere, and then we transition into tomorrow morning. It does look like maybe a messy morning commute is in store, so make sure that you're keeping the rain gear handy. Megan Western described it perfectly this morning. Some form of a fail-safe kit that maybe has a poncho, your umbrella, your rain jacket. You'll want to keep those close by at all times throughout the next 3 days, maybe even as far out into Sunday. So Friday around 7 a.m. morning commute time, looks like rain chances are greater farther up to the north. We could very well see that shift down to the south just a little bit. So know that everyone does have the potential to walk out to some rain, and with this widespread cloud cover just lingering throughout the entirety of this 24-hour period into the future, not much evaporation is going to be present. So you need some evaporation to dry up all of those wet surfaces. And it doesn't look like we're really going to have much of that. Some of the roads may dry up on their own. They may begin to drain if you do hit a decent gap of a couple of hours that you're not receiving rainfall. However, I do imagine that many of the roads, many of the surfaces on the ground are going to remain wet and pretty slick as we go into Friday morning commute time. So all the more reason to just have a little bit of caution on that morning commute out the door. Going into around lunchtime, rain scatters out a bit, but just because it scatters out and it doesn't look as widespread doesn't mean that it won't come back in a few hours. That's what I mean by on and off rain. You will have some periods that it's not raining. It's not going to be continuous rain from right now all the way through Saturday, but it does look like we are going to have rounds and rounds of mainly light showers. The most prominent color we have seen is the green color, but the darker green that you get and transitioning into some pockets of yellow, orange, maybe even some red, that's going to be where your steadier and your heavier rainfall is going to be. And once again, like I said, down to the south and south central Georgia, this is right around when you're wrapping up the work week. 5 p.m. tomorrow evening, and obviously many Christmas celebrations and parades and festivities will be kicking off just after everyone gets off for work at the end of the work week. So it's not looking like a very conducive forecast. Rain continues to be present on and off as we go into the evening and the nighttime hours tomorrow, and it will persist into the overnight hours and early Saturday morning. That's why we do have a weather impact alert, because 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, obviously not a very important time whatsoever, but many people down in northern Houston County, the Warner Robins Christmas Parade, you're gearing up, getting the floats ready. The parade will be kicking off at 10 a.m. That's if the parade is still scheduled for Saturday morning at 10 a.m., because here's your timestamp. Widespread rain engulfing almost all of central Georgia. Once again, it's mainly of the light and steady shower variety. However, it's paired up with chilly temperatures, and this is just adding on top of all the rain that we will see today and Friday. So we're very likely going to see our fair share of wet roads. It's not something that you really want to be sitting outside for an extended period of time. Then we go into Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. This is 1 hour after kickoff of the Mercer, South Dakota game. Now this is going to be a little bit different. I do imagine many of the Christmas festivities are going to get postponed and rescheduled for a later date, maybe at the beginning of next week, maybe as of next weekend. However, Mercer, take a look at this. This is going to be still in the form of steady, maybe even some pockets of heavy rain. This isn't anything in the way of storms. And the one thing that you can have to stop or make a delay to the football games is going to be lightning. So we're not forecasting anything in the way of storms or rumbles of thunder that you may hear. So I do imagine that game is going to go rain or shine up here at Five Star Stadium. And if you are planning on maybe braving those elements and going out and supporting the Bears in their first home playoff game that they have had, and obviously make sure that you're bundling up. A rain poncho is probably going to be the best choice of attire, because you're going to be sitting in this cold rain for quite some time, an extended period of a couple of hours. And we continue to have widespread rain until we finally get into Saturday in the late afternoon to evening time frame. It does look like we start to see the beginning signs of maybe a frontal boundary pushing in from the north and the northwest. I still think it's actually going to be Sunday before that actually happens, but the rain is retreating down towards the south a little bit. So once again, if we go into the later hours on Saturday, you may see some clearing in the rain the farther north that you live, but our southern counties still getting round after round after round of rain. That's why the rainfall totals are going to be higher down there. And then as we transition into really early on Sunday morning, it finally looks like we get a decent gap and a decent gap in the rain coverage and a decent break from it. However, I do believe the rain chances are still going to linger in the picture into Sunday, and we'll talk about that with the long-range models. So let's take a look at your excessive rainfall outlook. Farther down to the south, you do have a low-end marginal risk for maybe some isolated flash flooding. I did mention nuisance flooding a little bit earlier. So what that's going to mean, it's mainly the ponding of water in those areas that don't necessarily drain well, and they may not seem like they have many impacts, but obviously on the roads, I think that's going to be the main impact. If you are having any plans throughout Saturday to maybe drive on the interstates when you're driving at faster speeds, if you drive through some of those puddles, those shallow areas of water, that can decrease the grip with your tires and the surface, so it can increase the risk of hydroplaning. Make sure that you're driving slower through those ponded areas if you absolutely can avoid them. And then along with that, maybe some back roads or areas that don't drain well, maybe some roads that dip down kind of in a valley shape and they are next to some areas that do pond up very easily. You can see the puddling up of water on those roadways. That's basically what I mean by nuisance flooding. It doesn't have a very drastic effect on life or property that we would be talking about maybe if we were to get into a moderate or a high risk on this excessive rainfall outlook. So we're very thankful for that, but that's something I just want you to be on the lookout for and an impact that you will see from all this rain over the course of the next 3 days. But when we add up all of these totals, what do they get up to? Here's the latest run of the graph model where most areas are hovering right there around an inch, maybe upwards to about 1.5 inches of rain. I think the 1 to 2 inch range is going to be a solid range for most cities in central Georgia. Now, if you live down to the south, that's where your rainfall totals will be higher. It's not picking it apart on any of these points right now, but you can see darker shades. So that kind of light blue gray color transitioning more so into a purple shade as you go down into Crisp, Wilcox, Dodge, Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery counties. That's where your rainfall totals could get up to 2 to 3 inches, and maybe some localized areas that just get heavy rain shower after heavy rain shower training over the same area. That could result in some isolated pockets, maybe even 4 inches of rain. So what you need to know over the next 3 days, your weather impact alert going to kick off tomorrow evening, and it's going for the entirety of Saturday. And you may ask, Alex, the rain has already started. It's going to be widespread throughout your Thursday. Take a look at that, 60% chance of rain. Yes, you are correct in saying that, but our weather impact alert is mainly dictated by all of those plans that we do have for Christmas celebrations and, of course, the Mercer football game, because that's going to be some high volume events and something that many of you have already planned your schedule out and carved out time for to make sure that you can go to. With the cancellation and the postponement of many of these Christmas festivities, obviously that's why we have that weather impact alert, because the weather is impacting your daily routine. As far as the Mercer game goes, it obviously may not result in a cancellation or a postponement of the game. However, it is going to result in a very messy forecast, so we want you to stay informed if you have plans to go out to Five Star Stadium, say just before lunchtime on Saturday. So that's why we have the weather impact alert for Friday evening into Saturday. As far as the temperatures go, I think you should expect the numbers to be nestled in the 40s all throughout a majority of the weekend. That's daytime and that's nighttime. I went with the upper end of the scale with your high temperatures. We could creep into the low 50s as we go maybe into Friday and more so Saturday. However, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. And even if you pop up a temperature of say 53 on Saturday afternoon, it's still going to be chilly. 53 is not that far off some of the upper 40s that we are forecasting throughout the rest of today. So in terms of your Mercer football forecast, had enough time to get this graphic ready today. Here's what I am forecasting right around tailgate time. I do have these times actually staggered, didn't update those. Tailgate time going to be more so around 9 to 10 a.m. and that's what I have forecasted for a temperature of 50 degrees, chilly and wet. Kickoff is going to be at noon and it's still going to be a dreary and messy forecast. And it's still raining as you go into the late afternoon and evening time frame, probably around 4 o'clock when the game will be concluding. But we are seeing signs of the rain trying to clear out, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that maybe the rain gets out of here a little bit earlier up in the Macon area as you go into fourth quarter time, maybe even overtime for this very good game that is set to take place. South Dakota, the number 11 seed, and Mercer, I believe, is the number 6 seed in the FCS playoffs. So obviously a game with big implications, and I still don't foresee it getting canceled whatsoever. Don't think the rain's going to be heavy enough. It is just going to be a messy and a nasty atmosphere to be outside for. So Five Star Stadium, 12 o'clock. That's what time the Mercer Bears will be kicking off against South Dakota on Saturday. Make sure you're bundled up. Grab a rain poncho. I think that's going to be the best thing that you can wear because your rain jacket doesn't always block 100% of that rain. And the last thing you want to do is be holding up an umbrella over yourself sitting in the stands for the course of a couple of hours. So your morning low temperatures, I did mention the increase in cloud cover, and that's going to knock your morning low temperatures back up above average. So somewhere in the lower half of the 40s each of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even into Monday morning. But Monday, we could see maybe some clearing in the cloud cover by then, so that might be a reason why we finally see a drop down to the 40-degree mark, a bit closer to average of 39 degrees. Your afternoon high temperatures are going to be the opposite, however. They will be below average each and every day, even if we are to get some breaks in the cloud cover, say on Sunday, to allow for a warm up in the upper 50s. Average this time of year, 64 degrees, so that's still 7 degrees below average for this time of year. Not only are we bringing in the month of December with dreary weather, but it's also been a chilly start, but it is pretty appropriate. December is going to kick off the beginning of the winter season a couple days before Christmas, so obviously it was only a matter of time before we settled into these colder temperatures. However, the rain has definitely been something we've been searching for a while. Obviously, we were hoping it would line up on some uneventful days as opposed to the eventful days that we do have this weekend. But now let's talk about Sunday, because I did mention your weather impact alert starting on Friday evening, going all day Saturday for the sake of weekend events that we have in Central Georgia. We could extend this into Sunday because the downtown Macon Christmas parade will be happening on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. This is just before, and it does look like another round of widespread rain, mainly towards the south, could be taking place as we go into that afternoon time frame. But these long-range models, they don't have the best resolution. So I'm waiting to get a good view of what short-range Future View does say, that graph model, the higher resolution model, because if this rain is off farther to the south, we wouldn't go with the weather impact alert if those rain chances are going to be best to the south of Macon. So continue to stay updated with that, but it does look like we do have one more round of rain trying to push through along that stalled boundary. Then the frontal boundary to the north and the northwest begins to push in as we go into the later hours on Sunday, still holding on to maybe a few spotty showers for Monday morning. However, it won't be widespread whatsoever. And finally, some clearing in the cloud cover that will allow for a bit of a temperature drop on Monday morning. However, Monday afternoon should be maybe a tad bit on the warmer side, somewhere in the upper half of the 50s as opposed to the upper 40s and the low 50s. Then we go into Monday evening. Say goodbye to the rain chances at long last, and then we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. Another dry stretch does look to be in order, but we could see another rainmaker taking shape as we go into Thursday morning. It's only popping up according to the European model right now, so we'll continue to keep our eyes out to see if maybe we can see some model agreement with this, but all in all, these don't look like that impressive of rain chances whatsoever, especially compared to what Sunday did look like down to the south of us. In Future View, the long-range models only go out to around 4 p.m. next Thursday, but it finally does look like a dry stretch of weather is in order after we've had about 6 of the first 7 days of December that have had rain chances in the forecast. But let's go ahead and add up Sunday's rainfall into our totals that we saw for the next 3 days. It is hinting at, or the GFS model rather I should say, is hinting at maybe some totals up to 3, maybe 4 inches farther down to the south, mainly in that 1 to 2 inch range the farther north that you go. So there will be a fine gradient in terms of rainfall totals. It will get lesser and lesser as you go farther and farther up to the north, meaning that we could see better alleviation of drought conditions farther to the south as we go into the latest update of the drought monitor this time next week. And let's go with the GFS's counterpart, the European model, and this is actually taking into account that rainfall that we could see early next Thursday. It does look like anywhere from about the 1 to 2 inch range, and I would say maybe some totals between 2 and 3 inches in our southernmost counties. So weather impact alert starting on Friday evening, going all throughout Saturday. As of right now, we're still continuing to monitor what the status of that Macon Christmas parade is going to look like on Sunday. And the main reason for this weather impact alert is going to be for the sake of Christmas events, Christmas celebrations, and of course the Mercer football game, because that is what this weather is impacting. Obviously the rain has already got going and it is going to be widespread throughout Thursday, but today is still not a weather impact alert. It's going to be for Friday evening into all day on Saturday. So on and off chilly rain is the impact. What you need to do is have caution on the roads, budget for a few extra minutes to reach your destinations at the beginning of this weekend. Make sure that you're dressed warm. And that is very, very important. Don't just grab the rain gear as you head outside. Wear some layers underneath that rain gear because it is going to be chilly with temperatures in the 40s for a majority of the weekend. Keep an eye on that event status. Like I mentioned, we're drafting up an article on 13wmaz.com, and you can click our weather impact web story that we do have. It has a link at the bottom of it, and it will send you to that web story about which events have seen a postponement or a cancellation and when they are rescheduled for as of right now. So we're continuing to gather all that information as we have it. And if you're wondering about the Warner Robins Christmas parade, they said they would make a call tomorrow, but I do imagine it's probably not going to be much good news. So weather impact alert in that red shade that you do see, highlighted by the alert that you do see on the top of those boxes. Very chilly, very rainy, very dreary. It's some perfect make some hot cocoa and sit by the fire weather and enjoy a Christmas movie marathon if I had it this weekend. But obviously many of you have other plans for celebration. Rain chances do start to decrease as we go into Sunday. I think it might be kind of a half and half forecast. Definitely down to the south, I think we'll still receive another round of rainfall, but how far north that rain does extend still remains a bit up in the air. Then we finally see some clearing, but a frontal boundary will be causing that clearing. So we may see some cooler and drier air behind that frontal boundary, not necessarily correlating to a warm up. You'll want to keep the winter coat handy all throughout the next week here in central Georgia, but it will be very pleasant to finally see some peaks of sunshine next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back here at 11 a.m. tomorrow for once again a look at what's ahead this weekend.